Eyes on Longmont, offering a diversity of topics about our community that will inform and entertain you. We invite you to sit back and enjoy this edition of Eyes on Longmont.
Hi, I'm Jennifer with the Colorado State Button Society, and we're here today to tell you about buttons and why we love collecting and looking at buttons. With me are Louis Lombardi, lives here in Longmont, Colorado, and we have clubs around the state. We have 7 clubs in the state, and he's a member of Longmont.
Actually, I live in Lafayette, Colorado.
Okay.
But close enough, and I am a member of the Lark Buttoning Society here in Longmont, and we're one of 7 state regional groups. And next to me,
I'm Harriet Brittingham, and I'm from Parker, Colorado, and we also have a button club down in Parker. And as Jennifer said, we have clubs all over the Front Range, and we're hoping that we can entice you to come in and at least get a good glimpse of what the button world is all about.
They're beautiful, they're fun to collect, they're fun to wear. We make bracelets out of them, we make necklaces out of them. Artistry is a high point in our society. As you can see, we have them on our garments, and we collect them because they're small, easy to get, and if we're out of the state or in another country, they're easy to put in your pocketbook and bring home, and they're fun to look for. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
I think one of the most frequent questions I get is, how did you get started in buttons? Do you guys get that too?
absolutely,
Just
always.
Always. And my story goes back many, many years. I'm a 3rd generation collector. My mom and my grandmother collected in a tiny town in northwest Montana. And to keep me busy, during their button club meetings, I would sit on somebody's lap and string buttons. And I'm still stringing those years later.
the same ones?
Same ones
Same,
over
yeah.
and over. It's
Okay.
perseveration. But a lot of my family history is captured through buttons. This card of buttons was collected by my uncle in 1945 in Germany,
Wow.
World War II. And someone said this morning, well, Harriet, there's one missing. Long story, I'll tell you that later. But this is part of our family history and heritage. And I got the bug and haven't stopped. What about you, Louis? How'd you get?
Well, it's not very long of a story, but it happened, it happened 40 years ago. My wife and I were on honeymoon in Pennsylvania, deep in Amish country, and decided to stop at an auction one night. And at the auction, of course, there were all kinds of things. And I want to preface that by saying I'm a collector, so for me it was a great place to be, and I collect all kinds of things. Anyway, we bought this box, and I don't even remember what it was we bought the box for, but once we started to go through it, there was a tin of buttons. It was either coffee tin or candy tin or whatever. Mm-hmm. And in there were buttons, buttons, buttons. And we went through them and picked out what we liked. And that was it. She started off on the button collecting, and being the gatherer and the hunter that I am when it comes to collections, I would follow her to the different shows. And she'd say, I need this one, or I need that one, or look for this for me. And that's what I would do. I would take off and go hunting. And after a while, I started to look at it in a different light altogether. I started to see that it was a artwork in miniature, and I was a collector of stamps prior to that, and so I put the two together. Actually, here's a card that I did last year at the our state show, And what we did is we matched up the subject matter on the buttons to what was on the stamp and tried to make it as identical as possible. And so that's my card, if I can hold it steady. And that's the one I did. And it worked out pretty well, and in particular this bee, it's funny because the stamp itself is from England, and so is the button. And they're identical. The images are identical. So it was kind of interesting to actually find one that was exactly the same as the stamp. So
Is that a
was
ceramic
fun.
button?
That is ceramic.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Did you
lovely.
start with stamps first or buttons?
You know, I started with rocks first.
Ah,
And then it went to, my grandfather got me involved in stamps, so I did that in the 50s. And then in the 60s, I began collecting old bottles. And that's my love. I love glass bottles, I really do. And then this was in 1978 that my wife and I went into the buttons. And again, it was just a matter of me going out hunting and finding. And a lot of people ask how a man gets involved in something that's really more for the ladies. And again, it's the artwork itself. And as I became more and more interested, I developed an interest not so much in uniform buttons, which many men would be very interested in, because there's railroad buttons, there's military buttons, and I got involved in a part that was what they call livery buttons. And as I researched them and studied them, I found that they are a part of genealogy, ancestry, heraldry, and everything took off from there. And so now I just like all the buttons. It's just grown into.
takes over your life.
It takes over your. Yes, it does almost.
Did you bring any more trays to show us buttons that you like?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I did. Let me excuse my back. I'm gonna
Let's
put this
show
over
people
here.
some of the pretties that we collect.
This is one that I did 2 years ago, and it's all metal, what we call picture buttons, and it showcases the borders, which has just been recently upgraded by the National Button Society. They've expanded their view of borders, and so I did one that matched their new criteria, and that's it. And they're all metal, and they're all different pictures. And this
What's
is,
your favorite one on that tray?
on this tray?
And for what reason?
Let's see. I kind of like this one. This is a picture of Sarah Barnhart. Barnhart, I think that's who it was,
right.
Sarah Barnhart.
Yeah.
She played the role of Napoleon's
Napoleon.
nephew, or was it his son? In any case, she played the role of this Napoleon, who they called the Aiglon, the eagle. And if you look at it close enough, you'll see that the picture in the center is of Sarah Barnhart as that player in that role. And then the border itself is that of an eagle. So that's my favorite on there right now. But they're all favorites.
What about you, Jennifer?
I started collecting in 2009, so I'm the baby to the group.
You are?
I did not inherit buttons. I learned about the National Button Show that was going to be in Colorado in 2009 in August. It's always in August every year, different parts of the country. And I read a small article in the paper, got in the car, said, I'm going to go figure this out, see what's going on out there. Walked into a large ballroom with hundreds of thousands of buttons. No exaggeration. And trays like these of competitive buttons, people that are showing off their beautiful buttons to earn ribbons, blue ribbons and various colors of ribbons. And I was overwhelmed. And I walked up to a gentleman and said, what are you looking for and why are you collecting? And it turned out to be one of our, he's the former president of the National Society, but a fabulous collector, longtime family collector from Kansas. And I didn't know that at the time, but he stopped for a minute and said, I collect this, and this is what I'm looking for. And I didn't buy a single button that day because I was just in overload. So I looked on the website and found out that Colorado had a society. So I pursued it when I got home, and our information is readily available on coloradobuttons.com. We have information regarding our clubs that meet, competitive trays like these from previous years under various tabs on the website, and our upcoming show in April. So there's all the information on there, and I can be reached through the website, and various other members can be reached through the website. So that's a good resource. At any rate, I want to show you one of my favorite trays. And this one we put together last year, and it was things you can do in and around Colorado. So the buttons are all, the idea behind putting these competitive trays together is that you show various materials. I have an acrylic button, I have a mother of pearl button. This button is made out of leather with a bucking bronco on it. I have one made out of wood and ceramic and vegetable ivory, which is a nut that buttons are made out of, and black glass. I even have an enamel Volkswagen Bug on my tray. So they're fun to put together, they're educational, and they're fun to look at when you're done.
Yeah. You know, we've talked about buttons that are special or specific to, excuse me, a subject or an era. The other thing we find in our study are things that come from different art eras or historical eras. And I love this. I wish I would have done this card, but I didn't. A friend of mine did. And it shows off Art Deco items. And this guy right here, this huge peacock, which is very stylized, is a button, believe it or not. And it's well in excess of 2 inches across. Wonder where they wore that. But the other things we run into as we collect are buckles, glove hooks, shoe hooks, button hooks, those kinds of things. And they're all fun. They are all topics that we talk about and study. And it allows us to continue with lifelong learning and also to help preserve those items from long ago.
Right. I wanted to point out, too, that we're not the pioneers of this. For our national society, they began in 1938 as an organization of collecting buttons. So we're not really new at this.
No, we're not.
And our society in Colorado began in 1968, and we are celebrating our 50th anniversary this year in April at our annual show.
Yeah.
So. Again, and the thing about the buttons too, and I wanted to mention that, people wore these all the way back to the 7th or 18th century, and buttons are available that old, from the 1700s. Most of them, however, fall into the 19th century, and but they did wear them, and surprisingly, it's not like we do now where you throw them in the washing machine. They would actually take them off the clothes, set them aside, and then wash the clothes and then put them back on. And they would wear them almost as if they were jewelry. And so the historical part of it is a lot of my interest, as well as the organizational part of it. So
it's about sorting data, really, and sorting information, I think, for me, too. I like the movability of things. You can move it from one tray to another. It falls in different categories. How do you classify it? Is it the right size? Is it the right material? That kind of thing. I'd like to show you another one of my favorite trays.
Go ahead.
This tray is a competitive tray we did with an equal number of birds and dogs. And we have a special member of our society. She helped me make this tray to go with the green grass along here for the dog to run in. So this is a Dalmatian, not a Dalmatian, this is a Dachshund. And he's made out of Bakelite. So he's a relatively old button, I'd say. Some of them are modern. I have a button that's quail made out of steel. I have a modern button by one of our button dealers that's coming to our show this year. She makes these beautiful buttons. She lives in Oregon, but we have dealers coming from Wisconsin, Oregon, Pennsylvania.
How many do we have coming this year, Jennifer?
We have 10 dealers this year, so we're going to have a very full showroom. We have a kids corner for activities for children, and we're having 2 open to the public gratis presentations on Friday night and on Saturday night. One's a longtime button collector who is, has deep roots in railroad and railroad history in the state of Colorado, and she has a fabulous collection. And that presentation will be on Friday night, and again, this is on our website. And Saturday night, we're having a presentation. We're calling it Fired Glass Art, because we have two dealers. One makes, they both make their buttons out of glass. One does cane work and the other does fused work. So it's two different applications with glass. And we're having live entertainment that night. We have a group coming from Colorado Springs, the Piano Man and his counterpart, and they'll be playing music from the 60s. So we're going to have a fun evening, and we invite everyone to come. So,
What about, will they get to see any buttons if they come to the show?
buttons, hundreds of thousands of buttons. I just said, I mean, our show, it's vast, it's wide, it's deep. If you have an interest in putting your hand in a little pot like you, stirring up split peas to make split pea soup as you did when you were a kid, you can go into the poke boxes that are at every single dealer. You can find buttons from $1 to $100, or $1 to $1,000. There are buttons for everyone represented at our show.
And they're of every age you can imagine, and as well as every material that could be made into a button, it was done.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
almost, it's a myriad of subject matter. So whatever you might be interested, say that you only like dogs, trust me, you'll find a lot of dogs. And if you notice, we had put these on a 9x12 card, which could be put into a frame. So if you decide I want 30 buttons of dogs or 30 buttons of a uniform or whatever, you can put them in a picture frame, hang them on the wall, and you're done.
Yeah.
You can go off and start looking for more.
Louis mentioned earlier that really these are miniature works of art. And this tray, which again, a favorite, is all cherubs. And so what's the difference between a cherub and a cupid? Well, who cares? But this is really...
We do.
We
do,
do,
yes,
but from just a visual standpoint, these are great trays. And Louis also mentioned that any material you can think of, we can find a button made from that material. And so a card with 25 buttons on it, there are 25 different materials, all showing a cupid. So isn't that kind of fun? And what a great, I mean, it takes forever to put them together, but what a great quest.
Right. And there's a lot of contemporary artists. Jennifer mentioned the glass artists that we have. There's artists in just about every medium. One of my favorites is a fellow that works with Bakelite, and he takes pool balls. I don't know, some people may not be familiar with the game of pool, but he'll take a pool ball that is white and another color. He'll take it and cut it in sections and then carve it. And he does fantastic work.
They're beautiful.
Yeah, makes some beautiful, beautiful buttons. And then he also uses vegetable ivory, wood, and almost every other natural material. And he's an excellent carver. So, and there are people like this all throughout the society who are making new buttons, contemporary buttons. So it's not just the old, it's also the new. And the kids, we like to see the kids get involved in it too, because there are so many what we call realistic buttons that are made out of, the one in particular I'm thinking of is nylon. They snap together and they are pretty whimsical, and so the kids have things that they can find that's relatively
Can
simple.
kids be a member?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I believe 6 years old is the earliest they can start, 18 then they're adult, but there's two classes, 6 to 12 and 12 to 18, I believe.
We encourage kids. We love kids. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I want to show you another tray. I'm just a
Alright.
little tray hog here. I'm going to show you some
Let's
more.
see it.
So I entered this one as a first-time entrant at National several years ago, and the qualification was 5 different materials. So each line represents a different material from which the button would be made. The top ones, believe it or not, are all black glass, including the one that's in the center that's blue, the blue kimono. Glass and metals. We have everything from copper to pewter to...
You've got a silver on there, right?
I've got, well, I think my Noah's Ark is silver.
I
Yeah.
think it is too.
And then everything can be a button, including a faucet.
And how,
So
how,
there's,
how many buttons on here are made by artists, currently made by artists?
well, you help me with this because
I
you're,
can see
you're better at
several,
this than I
Yeah.
am.
but I just
So
wanted to know.
I would say this is a studio button, meaning made by an artist for button collectors only.
The kimono.
This is a studio button, yes. I would say this mask face is a studio button.
And I'd say that this paperweight is also a studio button.
Paperweight.
Okay.
And I want to point out the shell button on the bottom row, Jennifer. Those are called Bethlehem pearls, and they are carved in the Mid-East, and the artwork is exquisite.
And there are old ones and new ones, right?
Old ones and new ones.
So they're
yeah.
still doing it.
They are.
Yeah, yeah. This is one of my favorites because it's mother of pearl with silver on the outside, and it's a beautiful swan swimming on a little lake. So anyway, but it's fun. They're fun to put together, and I think I actually got an award for this one. There weren't that many entrants. So.
Well, we've loved telling you about our habit, our button collecting. And we hope that we've shared some information that's of value. And we also hope to see all of you at our show in April down in Denver. Again, go to our website, which is www.coloradobuttons.com.
Yep.
We've talked about our Colorado website. We are also on Facebook. But when you go there, you're going to discover a plethora, don't you love that word, of other websites and resources available to you. The first one is nationalbuttonsociety.org, which is really the clearinghouse for all of the state and regional societies out there. Also, National has a Facebook. The other organization that serves those of us in Colorado is the Western Regional Button Association, and we hold a biannual show in Reno every year, which is a great show to go to. And each one of the organizations offers support and resource materials. I think Jennifer's got a couple.
For example, we in Colorado produce 2 of the button baskets each year for our membership. They have the benefit of receiving this in the mail, and it's filled with articles and updates about upcoming events. And with National, this is the national bulletin that comes with your annual membership, and this is produced
5 times.
5 times a year, 5 times a year. So there's a wealth of information in here. There's a wealth of information in here and information in there. And the books are, some are out of print, but they're already available in, we have a library, for example. Our society has a library where members can access books for an unlimited period of time.
Yes,
There's
that's
no
right.
2-week checkout, so you can take the book home with you and study black glass from the Victorian era if you want to. So,
We have in Longmont Library, there are a lot of books that are dedicated to buttons and button-related
Wow.
subjects right here in town. So that's always good to know. We also are a new member of the Midwestern Regional Button Association that is centered primarily in Missouri, I believe, if not Iowa. But anyway, we're a member of that group. There are at least 4 regions.
Right.
Northeastern region, Western region, and the Midwestern
Midwest.
region. So, and every single state, I would say every single state, has its own button society that works together too. So,
and you'll find that once you get involved, it's deeper and wider than you think.
yeah.
And we're
there's no
open to
question.
new members.
Yeah,
we
that's a
love
great
we
way.
love new members.
There's not
because
enough men.
You think you know about buttons until you've seen buttons.
That's true.
Yeah, people laugh when you say you're collecting buttons.
Yeah.
Yes, and give you
I
that
don't
strange look.
understand.
Yeah, they'll say
Yeah.
the shirt button, those things,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
kind, sort of maybe.
My sister several years ago said, "So what are you up to now?" She wasn't living in the state at that time. I said, "Well, I'm collecting buttons," and she laughed heart on the other end of the phone. So I said, oh, you can laugh at all you want until you see what they are really like. So come join us. Come get the excitement of our excitement.